p.m. I will call the Newport City Council meeting to order for Monday, December 21st, 2020, 6:30 p.m. This is a remote City Council meeting. I notice connected remotely are Council President Dan Ross, City Council Member Kevin Charbonneau, Council Member Melissa Pedersen, and Council Member John Wilson are connected remotely. In the City Council room, we have our City Manager Laura Dogan, our City Clerk Treasurer James Johnson. I believe we have our Police Chief Travis Bingham. We have our Public Works Director Tom Bernier, and we have Fire Chief John Harlemert. Laura can tell me if I missed anyone. I don't think I did. And so
we do have City Landscaper Robert Gosselin as well.
I knew I'd missed one person. Okay, thank you. And with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of December 7th, 2020.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Wilson moves to approve the minutes of 7 December 2020.
A motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Dan Ross, second.
I heard it was made by Mr. Wilson, and I heard Ms. Pedersen before Mr. Ross second the motion. Discussion on the minutes of December 7th. Then all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. The next item is public comments by members of the public. This is an opportunity to mention anything that is not currently on the agenda for this evening. And so I open it up to anybody who wishes to make any comment. There are no public comments. Then the next item is Newport City Elementary School Winter Song video presentation. We've had some technical difficulties in unfortunately playing the video. I'm not sure if the city manager can at least play the audio, but I'm going to turn it over to her right now. Laura, you're muted.
Okay.
Am I supposed to be muted?
Okay. The catchphrase of 2020 is "you're muted." So I want to thank everybody for your patience. The mayor and I have been trying in earnest to get this video to show. We're having some technical difficulties, so I want to heartbreak for the people who are on the call special for this, because the video is absolutely the most precious thing. This is the brainchild of collaboration of the city working with the city of Newport Elementary School through our solid waste implementation plan. And it's sort of a really nice positive byproduct. And the reason it's so fitting to do it at a city council meeting, particularly while we are in the midst of a pandemic, was summed up beautifully by their music teacher, Sagelyn Green. And I just want to read something that she submitted to us, because it really is so heartfelt, and at this time of year in the middle of a pandemic, it's so fitting. Sagelyn Green says, "I want to thank you immensely for allowing my chorus students to still have the opportunity to showcase what they have been working on in some way, and for showing that hard work to the community. My students are very excited. Because of COVID-19 guidelines, we have not been allowed to sing indoors, so we've been rehearsing in the cold, snow, wind, and sometimes in the rain, as you'll be able to see or hear in the video. And it can be really hard to stay focused outside with so much going on around us. Having a goal to work on really showed the resiliency of these students, So thank you for giving us that goal. And with that, I'm going to do my best to play this video so that you can hear how precious it really is. I want you to know that the video is about 3 minutes and 28 seconds. It is worth every minute, so please be patient while the audio is running. I don't think you'll be able to see the video, which is a shame because I hope Sagelin will be able to distribute this in her own right because the video is so precious to these kids. Oh, there it is. So with that, let me start it.
Is that Miss Forbes right there? With her white.
What do you think was that? Are they going to share this, I wonder? Probably, right? Share the video?
Mommy, what were you going to set up? He was taking off his sweater.
What are the lyrics say, Greta? What do the lyrics say?
And there you have it.
What?
I think Sagelin is on the phone with us. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw her name.
Yes, you did.
Sagelin, I just want to thank you. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I hope that you can see the video on your screen.
I can, yes.
It's really beautiful, and I just want you to know how much we appreciate the work that you put into it. And I want to thank the students. That took a lot of courage. I don't know which one is my favorite, so I just want to thank you again. And maybe next year we'll have the luxury of having you come in person.
I hope so. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you from Isabella and Benjamin.
Why did he say not say?
Isabella and Benjamin are two students in the recording.
Nice. Nice. We're happy to have them.
Yes, I wanted to thank everybody who participated in the video. I thought it was wonderful. And I also apologize. I spent several hours yesterday trying to get the video to integrate with our conference call software, and for some reason it just did not want to integrate. And unfortunately, I didn't get a response from tech support, so Laura and I, we basically tried to improvise so that you could hear the audio and I had the video playing, and that was kind of like an improvision. And basically, I just want to let everyone know that it will be posted, I believe, either on the city website or the recreation website. So
Yeah.
it will be posted so that everybody can see it. I believe we're also going to post it probably on our social media, on the rec social media page. So it will be out there for everybody to see. And so with that, I want to once again thank Sage Lynn and everyone who took part.
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to say thank you too, and the technology is not the important part. The fact that the children got out there and performed and practiced and were willing to do that to, have something for us to enjoy for the holidays. So thank you to the Newport Elementary School.
It was lovely.
Okay. Whoops, I just dropped my agenda.
Jess has confirmed that she's putting that on the Newport City Recreation Facebook page, so I'll send all the parents and the kids and the faculty there because it really is incredible. 5 stars.
Okay, and with that, we will move on. The next item on the agenda is the continued discussion of Act number 164, which is an act relating to the regulation of cannabis. We had a presentation at the last city council meeting, and I wanted to give the council members a chance to think about it, to get any feedback, and so on and so forth. And I'll start. The only feedback I had was from somebody who was concerned, and I explained to them the procedure. I said, one way or the other, either the council can put it on the ballot for the town meeting day, or the people requesting it could go out and get a petition and have it on the ballot one way or the other. And so basically they were happy with my explanation regarding the vote, and they were glad that we were considering just placing it on the ballot in town meeting. And that's the only feedback that I had received, was basically one person. In reality, they just wanted clarification. I don't know about other council members. You had questions or comments regarding this?
Mrs. Miller, I haven't had any feedback from anybody about it.
Okay.
Dan Ross here.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's important is we put it on the ballot. It's got to go to the voters anyhow, and that gives them some time, if we say it's going on the ballot, to do some of their own investigation. And I think, once they're informed, or better informed, I think they can make a reasonable decision.
Hey, Melissa, I agree with you, Dan. I think going, if we make a decision to put it on the ballot, there's certainly plenty of time for people to make up their own minds on how they, feel about it and how they want to vote. And I think that's personally, I think that's a good path to take.
Other city council members?
This is Kevin Charbonneau. I haven't heard anything from anybody, but it looks like it's got to be put before the voters, and it's my understanding that the Vermont League of Cities and Towns isn't requiring signatures because of COVID. Is that correct?
It depends. It's the council's choice. city council's choice whether to require signatures on this topic or other topics for the town meeting day. And I know with the COVID, I think we should just waive that and have this on the ballot. That's just my opinion.
I tend to agree with you. Rather than put people in harm's way, to have somebody go around and collect signatures.
Correct. Other comments from council members? Any questions for Liz or Dave?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Wilson?
Go ahead.
I agree. I have no feedback whatsoever on getting this put on the ballot for March. My question is, what about people that are running for city positions like yourself? Let's see, Mr. Ross and Ms. Pedersen are up again this year. Do they not need petitions, or?
Well, that's a topic that can be brought up on the new business. We're talking about the cannabis discussion right now. But it's my understanding the Vermont League, the Secretary of State, not the Secretary of State, the legislature. I'm getting mixed up. The legislature passed in October where you do not need signatures to be a candidate for office either. But we can, that can be discussed under other business if you want. But we're focusing on the cannabis right now. Anything you'd like to add, Liz or Dave, regarding this?
Very good. No, we have nothing more to ask or add at this time.
The only thing I would add is we had a Mayor's Coalition meeting last week, and this was a topic of discussion. And the only thing that we would like to see is the ability for municipalities to have a piece of the 14% surcharge that is going to be implemented on these retail outlets. Right now, there's no stipulation in the law that allows a municipality just to put at 1% or 2% option tax on just the retail establishment of the cannabis stores. And so we're all of us mayors, we're going to come up as basically recommend to the legislature that they should allow municipalities, whether it's a city or a town, to either get a small piece of the 14% surcharge, or I guess they call it excise tax, on the retail store, or give us the option of implementing a local option tax just on that type of store. So that I just wanted to let everyone know that was a topic of discussion. Other questions from council members before I ask for a motion? Questions or comments from council members? Okay. I have a request. If you are not speaking, if you could mute your microphones. I'm getting feedback. And so anyone who is not speaking currently, if you could just mute your microphone. If you're connected via the computer, there's a little mute button in the lower left of the screen, depending on the program you're using. If you're on a regular telephone, it's *6 to mute and *6 to unmute. And so,
Paul, this is Charlie Pronto. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure I was in. This is my first Google meeting. I've done a ton of Zoom, and I had all I could do to figure out how to get in here. So I will mute mine until you talk to me. How's that?
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye.
Okay. And with that, that's much better. I'm not getting the loud feedback in my ears right now. And so what I would entertain, right now I would entertain a motion to place the act, I don't have the exact wording of the motion in front of me, but it would basically be placing the act relating to the regulation of cannabis on our town meeting day ballot.
Mr. Mayor, I've got some proposed language for you for the council to consider, if I may.
Yes.
In recognition of the public health hazard posed by people acquiring signatures amid a global pandemic, all new article signatures and appropriation signatures for requests that were on the ballot last year shall be excused for the March 2nd, 2021 town meeting.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone care to make to make the motion?
Okay, Dan Ross here. That motion would be for anything that was previously on the ballot, not the cannabis, right?
Nope, that motion is regarding the cannabis.
It's encompassed in saying all new article signatures. That's what captures the, is it S164, by saying all new article signatures included in that.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Melissa will second.
Okay, discussion. The only discussion I have, Laura, regarding that motion is we do have a policy regarding appropriations, correct? But if someone came with a brand new appropriation request for, say, $100,000, are we going to require signatures to be placed on the ballot? Because that would be quite a hit to the taxpayers. Is this motion relating just to the cannabis article, or are we, because I want to be careful on how we do this, because I still think if someone came, I'm kind of probably exaggerating with a $100,000 appropriation request, but I know anything new as far as financial, personally, I would think we'd want to have signatures. I know other municipalities have done that. From what I've been reading, they've only waived appropriations of current or lesser amounts.
That is correct, and I'm glad you raised that so we can clarify that. The language in this motion is all new article signatures and appropriation signatures for requests that were on the ballot last year. Those are the only two categories that would be excused from the March 2nd, 2021 town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I think the word saying all new includes anybody who wants to get on there. It doesn't say the cannabis.
Yeah.
Paul wants to limit it to the cannabis and all previous appropriations. That's not what that motion says.
Right.
So Jim has raised the question that if a new article came forward, they too would also be excused from getting signatures. And the way this is worded, that is true. So if a new article came forward, they would also not have to get signatures. But the way this is written, any appropriation signature for requests that were on the ballot last year would be waived. So if a new appropriation request was made, they would have to get signatures. So there's articles and there's appropriations.
I don't think that's what it says.
Read it, Jim.
Because we currently have a policy that anybody for financial appropriations, if it's equal or less, they don't, and they've been on the ballot for so many years, they don't need to get signatures. My only concern is I didn't want to open up the floodgates of appropriations coming in without evaluating them and things like that.
That's what he's getting at.
One thing, you could make a modification of, instead of saying all new article signatures, you could put it specific to the number 164.
That's what I would prefer, is that it's specific to that, because we already have a policy for previous appropriations. We've had that for a few years. I think this should just be specific to the cannabis. I don't know how other council members feel, but that's just my thought on it.
So the language might look like this: in recognition of the public health hazard posed by people acquiring signatures amid a global pandemic, all article signatures relating to S-164 shall be excused for the March 2nd, 2021 town meeting.
Okay.
Can I jump in again?
Jim's going to jump in again.
I like the way that read, but I think all the articles that have been on there last year should also be excused. So we don't want them now getting signatures either.
That's what this says.
Everybody who's been on there now, except for one or two, maybe three at the utmost, don't have to get signatures anyway because they've met the requirements.
That's correct.
So it needs to include all previous articles.
So if you do that, here's the third version. In recognition of the public health hazard posed by people acquiring signatures amid a global pandemic, all article signatures pertaining to S-164 and requests that were on the ballot and appropriation requests that were on the ballot last year shall be excused for the March 2nd, 2021 meeting.
Yeah.
That's much better. Other council members, does that make sense now, or does that sound better?
Yes.
I think it sounds better, but do we have to withdraw her second and redo it?
We can redo it, or we can make an amendment to it, to the new language. We can amend it, and the amendment would have to pass, and then the amended motion would then, we can vote on that. Or, because technically you can't sort of bring the same thing back twice, so we should probably amend and then vote on that, vote on the amendment, and then if that passes, then you vote on the amended motion.
Okay. So, Melissa, do you want to make the motion on to amend it?
Yes, I'll move to amend the motion to as was read, and if Laura could just reread it again so everyone hears it again.
Yes. In recognition of the public health hazard posed by people acquiring signatures amid a global pandemic, all signatures required to place S-164 on the article, as well as appropriation signatures for requests that were on the ballot last year, shall be excused for the March 2nd, 2021 town meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Dan Ross, second.
Okay, a motion and seconded. Discussion on that. Then all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. And then back to the original motion. Any further discussion? Then all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Whew, we got through that one. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Dave and Liz. Okay, moving on is Planning Commission member resignation and a vote. We received a letter, and I will read the letter. It was from Daniel Pickering, and this is the letter. To whom it may concern, I regret to inform you that I am stepping down from my position on the Planning Commission. The reasons for this involve an increase in work responsibilities, family life, as well as the pursuit of my MBA. All of these responsibilities have seemed to compile and require more of my attention. I do feel these need to take priority over my current position on the committee and require my undivided attention. I do want to make it clear that I have received nothing but the utmost respect from the committee, the city council members during my time of serving. I have collaborated with Mayor Manette and Laura Dogan during my time on the committee, and I want to mention they have been an immense help to us and myself in getting the city plan moving forward. I am very much wanting to be on the committee, and I hope when my time-consuming constraints lessen, if there is an opening, I would be considered for the position. I do appreciate all the support while on the committee and from the city council members. I hope to collaborate with you all in the future, and I apologize for the action I must take. Sincerely, Daniel Pickering. And with that, we do need a motion to accept his resignation from the Planning Commission.
Dan Ross, so moved.
A motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Made by Dan Ross, seconded by Melissa, to accept Daniel Pickering's resignation. Any discussion?
I just want to say I know Dan and I work with him, see him every day, and when he does something, he's very dedicated to it. And I think he was a wonderful choice, and I hope we can find somebody with his skills to replace him.
I agree with you, Dan. I know chatting with him, he was saying that his responsibilities at his job because of COVID have skyrocketed, and that has made it much more difficult too.
Yes, if somebody walked through the school and see what the maintenance crew and he has to be responsible for now, it's just incredible. You know, it's like, to me, it's like a nightmare for them.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Then all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
I just wanted to let you know that we have the ads for replacing him ready to roll, and it'll be in the paper this week with a deadline of January 8th. So if anybody knows anybody who would be a qualified applicant, please encourage them to apply.
Okay, moving on. The next item is the East Side Water Tower update, and we have Wayne Elliott from Aldrich and Elliott Engineering. Wayne, did you want me to let you share your screen, or did you want me to put your Adobe file up on my screen? Whoop, you're muted, Wayne. Oh, Wayne, can you hear me? I can see you, but I can't hear you.
There's also Michael Mariner. I see Arlena.
Can you hear me here?
Is that
Yes.
Michael?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Can you? Okay, great. Yeah, I think if you were to put your screen up, I can run you through through the memo we sent and should answer some questions. And I think Wayne will pipe in when he can.
Okay. So let me get the right one.
Yeah, so just to introduce myself, I'm Mike Maynard. I'm from Aldrich and Elliott, and as you see, Wayne's on here. He just can't talk. This is really an update on the water system project. There isn't really any immediate action necessary. It's mostly just to fill folks in on what we've been up to. Folks who have been paying attention to this for a while, you might recall this has previously been called the East Side Water Tower Project. The water tower is still part of the project. There's been a few other things that have been added into the project, but the East Side Water Tower and disconnection from the Village of Derby Center are still the main part of the project. If we just bump down a few inches to the project scope, like I said, there's a few additional parts of the project have been added. The first one is probably the least exciting part of it, is the Paland Hill Reservoir liner and floating cover replacement. So that's the reservoir. It's up off of Derby Road. It serves most of the city. It's an open top reservoir. It uses a plastic liner and a floating cover to protect the water inside of it from contamination. Basically that liner and floating cover, they're getting old. We want to be proactive about replacing it before you start seeing some really significant issues with it. It's a relatively small part of the project cost, but like I said, this is just about maintaining the sanitary integrity of the water system there. The next item now, that's the Derby Road service area and the East Side Water Storage Tank project. Certainly I know Mayor Manette and Laura are both very familiar with what's been going on up there and the history that has necessitated this. Basically, this includes construction of a new water tower up off of Derby Road, sort of up behind the Tavern on the Hill there. It also includes disconnection of that area from the Village of Derby Center. That part of the Newport City water system isn't actually served by the City of Newport. The water comes from the Village of Derby Center, and that interconnection has proven to be extremely problematic over the past 20+ years. So by building this water tower, that connection can be severed and the water will be coming directly from the City of Newport. It also includes construction of a booster pump station to pump water from the rest of the city up into this new water tower. Then there's going to be a couple other modifications to some of the valve vaults up there just to make it all work. And this will be an elevated tank. It's a glass fused steel tank on a concrete pedestal. A little more of a modern material than what a lot of older water towers are, a little lower maintenance. The brochure we've included just includes a little bit of information on the water tower in case anyone's curious about it. And then if you go down a few pages, you'll also see a map of where we're building this. So as you can see, it's inside of the City of Newport. Right by the town line, but nonetheless within the City of Newport. One of the exciting things about this is, the city's been working on this for years, getting ready to move this project forward. So that's why this is a really important part of the project. Then the third part of the project is water meter installation. So over the past couple of years, the city's been working on installing water meters for all of its connections. Out of the about 1,800 service connections in the city, my understanding is there's still about 1,100 that aren't currently metered. And the assumption is that the city's going to keep working on installing meters where and when they can. The purpose of this project is to completely finish that process so that all of the city service connections will have water meters. These new water meters, they'll be compatible with the existing metering system the city's using. Just to jump ahead a little bit farther, and I should add all of the costs, we'll get into costs in a moment, but this is all in this memo as an attachment. So if you are just curious about any of that stuff, you can jump forward. Project schedule, one of the key items here is just holding a bond vote. So regardless of what kind of funding offers you get from someone like the state or the federal government, you have to hold a bond vote for the full amount. We're recommending that be done in March, so next spring. That would allow us to move to construction on the Palin Hill Reservoir liner and floating cover next summer. These water storage tanks have a much longer lead time, so we'd be looking to do construction on that in summer 2022. Then the project would finish in 2023 with a water meter replacement. That bond vote, the key there is that it needs, like anything else, it needs a 30-day warning prior to the bond vote. Before that, you have to prepare bond documents. We have to do a public informational session. So there is a process leading up to that, and that's what you'll want to be looking at. The process you want to be looking at starting within the next couple weeks. Project cost and funding. So this is the last section. Total estimated cost for the project is $4,985,000. So that includes construction. We've got a construction contingency in there. It includes engineering, permitting fees, some of the financial and legal and fiscal administration, just some of these other miscellaneous costs. The most favorable funding package that's available for this project is through the United States Department of Agriculture Rural Development Program. So they fund water and sewer projects for municipalities. To do that, there's what's called an RD apply application that was due last Friday. The city submitted that application last week. So that process has started. We haven't gotten the funding offer. That won't come until next spring. The city is eligible for up to about a 75% grant. We don't expect that much of a grant. It's probably going to be less. It might be in the 35 to 40% range. Anything that isn't covered by the grant, you can fund via intermediate rate loans. That's a 1.75% interest rate currently. We're estimating a 30-year loan term. So that's so that's what we call this the USDA Rural Development Program. So that process has started. Holding a positive bond vote is going to be necessary to actually making use of that funding, though. So, and like I said, if you go into the go down a page or two, you can see that total project cost estimate. So you can see we're including the reservoir liner, the service area improvements, east side storage tank construction, the water meters. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments about that. Oh, it looks like Wayne might actually.
Paul, do I have audio now?
Yes, you do.
Okay, cool. I was unmuted before. I don't know what was going on, but anyways, okay.
Are there questions from city council members regarding this?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
One of them, when we're talking the funding, we were talking, I know the reservoir liner replacement. Did that include anything to do with the booster stations? And number two, my second question is, we know that as it gets closer, probably the Derby Center that controls the water might not be overly happy, but can the town of Derby slow this down if we have a positive vote by the fact that the tower is so close to their property line? Those are my two questions.
Yeah, I can answer the first one, John, really quickly. Yes, so there'll be a booster pump station right adjacent to the existing Palin Reservoir, and that's going to actually move the water from there up to the new elevated storage tank.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And as far as the village, the current interlocal agreement actually has in that agreement the city eventually disconnecting from the village. I don't have the agreement right in front of me, unfortunately, but that Laura can probably address that. But I know we did put in there a contingency, and it is in the agreement that we were looking to build our own water tower.
Yep. And I understand that, Mr. Mayor, but when you look at the map, I know it's so close to Derby itself, not the village, but the town. Is any anticipation that they could throw some bolts into the gears because of this, and it's so close to their land?
Now, Wayne, do we need to get? I mean, we have our own zoning. It's inside the city of Newport.
Yeah,
but
that's correct.
Does this require Act 250, or is it small enough that it doesn't?
No,
I mean, as far as land-wise.
Yeah, well, it triggers Act 250, Paul, because of the size and scope of it. Basically, anytime you're increasing the capacity for any kind of municipal infrastructure, you're going to trigger an Act 250 permit. So the only way they could come into is they could probably, if they wanted to, they could request party status if you did, end up with a hearing. So that could probably be the only way they could participate or, in the permitting process.
But it would be the town or the adjacent landowner, which...
That's correct, yeah.
Which the adjacent landowner, I believe, is the gentleman who owns the Century 21, I think, that right there. Yep. They're on that side. Now, do you have to... Wayne, now the landowners across the street, do they get party status too, or does it have to be touching the actual property?
Well, no, it doesn't, Paul. So basically, you would also notify the abutters on the other side of Route 5, because that's public, that's state-owned land, so you would still have to notify those abutting landowners on the north side also.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions from council members?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes? I was just opening it up for council members to ask questions. Somebody is unmuted. That I'm getting feedback. Okay. Council members, questions regarding this? Mr. Wilson, you were on a long time on the council. You know a lot of the history, like I do, regarding negotiations and having agreements and having them suddenly not agreed. And I look at this project as we controlling our own destiny, because right now we're only allotted 10,000 gallons of water a day. I think we're using about 5,000. So in reality, if we had a large developer come in, say for the Palin Farm, which is zoned commercial and residential, we may not have enough flow of water, and we'd have to go back to the village. And in reality, the village could say no, which could hinder development in the city. That's the way I'm looking at it, looking for the long-term future and growth.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Wilson. Oh, yeah, we've done this for 8-10 years now, but I have one other concern. If we put this up to a bond vote in March, hopefully, the last time we did it, of course, only about 70 people voted out of 3,000. It was defeated, but that was just to go forward. It wasn't anything to do with the bond vote. But what happens if the public says no to the bond vote? Does this issue die, or do we continue to, try to take care of our own destiny?
My understanding, the last time it failed was mostly, my feedback was because we were asking for permission to move forward with a water tower that was actually in another municipality. And that's why I know people were concerned over that. That was the feedback I had, is because it was, basically it was in the town of Derby, where we were going to place the tower. And so, and also voting at town meeting will get a much bigger turnout. The last one was a special vote, and that's why you only had 70 people. This, you're going to get a much bigger cross section. At town meeting, I believe usually you get 500 or 600 up to maybe 700 people voting. Doesn't sound like a lot with the 3,000 checklists, but it's a much bigger. It'll be a much bigger turnout, which I think will be a better representation, in my opinion, as far as the bond vote.
And I agree with you there, but even though from the last time, we as a city didn't sell it very well. So we need to sell it a little bit more to the public, for hoping for them to vote for about $5 million. We didn't do it last time, but we need to sell it a little bit better to the public. Don't ask me how, but we need to.
Right. Other questions from city council members or comments?
I just want to mention one other thing that's tied in with this, and that's the water meters. I'm just amazed at how many people come to me and ask me, is this going to save me money? And for the majority of people, and I think most people are going to save money. I know I have saved significantly. So I unless you've got a huge garden and you wash your car every other day, you're going to save money, I think. And people have to understand it is a money-saving feature.
And the key with the water meters also being tied to all this was, Wayne can correct me, but the USDA funding, part of the stipulation for receiving funding from them or grant monies and funding is that we had to either be metered or going to meter. Am I correct, Wayne?
Yeah, that's correct, Paul. So that was where we were having some issues with the state back to spring when this project was resurrected. They had concerns about the size of the tank and the volume and water quality. So we started working with the USDA, and for them to fund the project, the city does have to have water meters. So either they have to already be existing or it has to be part of the overall proposed project.
And then once again, the total possible funding, I know the slide had 75%, but in reality, you think it would be what, 35, 40% from USDA? I know they've awarded some rather large funding in some projects in New Hampshire, so I'm just curious what you think might be a good realistic number that we would get possibly from USDA.
Well, so Paul, that's one thing we want to be a little careful about. You know, the city is in the REAP zone, so you do qualify for up to the 75% grant. You know, probably realistically, we want to just be transparent and, you know, make sure we're not over-promising here. But, you know, typical grant percent for this type of project is, as Mike said, really in the range of 35 to 45%. We have a pretty large wastewater treatment plant project down in Fairhaven that they got a funding offer about a year ago, and it's a similar sized project, actually a little bigger, and they got a 42% grant. So that's realistically in the range that we're looking for, Paul.
Good.
But
That's helpful when trying
Yep.
to explain it and to the voters that this is the potential. Now, my question, Wayne, is if the USDA doesn't come through, can we go back to was it revolving fund that had the low interest?
Yeah, that's correct, Paul. But that's obviously would be a city council decision. One of the challenges with the USDA is they can't make a formal funding offer until the city's got a positive bond vote. So the way that, the application, as Mike said, was submitted last Friday, with a lot of work put in by the city staff, and basically they run off the federal fiscal year, which starts October 1st. So they'll start processing those applications over the next few weeks here for the state portion. But again, they can't issue a formal funding offer until the community's got a positive bond vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Council, any questions from other council members or comments?
Guess not.
Okay. So the next step would be to have this, we would have to have the language for a bond vote. It would have to be a warned agenda item for the council to vote on it. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct, Paul, yeah.
And then what we could do is when we have it on the agenda for possibly voting to include it at town meeting, we could have you come back, Wayne, to answer other questions and questions from council members, from the public,
Yep.
So on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And as John, raised a good point, we were involved back with the previous bond vote in November 2017, and it's important to, get the word out there and get the information to people and, make sure people understand the long-term benefits of this new infrastructure within the city of Newport limits.
And my question now is for Jim Johnson. What is the last date that we can have something on the town meeting day ballot? I'm just thinking of timing and the number of meetings between now and the deadline to give people an opportunity to come up with questions and possibly have another presentation.
It can't be warned any less than 30 days prior to town meeting. So you gotta warn it 30 days in advance, at least.
So possibly.
You can't warn it more than 40 or less than 30.
So the first meeting in February, possibly?
Well, it's not when the first meeting is.
I have them
It'll
written.
have to be, I don't know when the first meeting in February is, but
I can tell you. I think it's the first meeting in February is
the first.
February 1st, and then February 8th.
How many days in February is it?
28th.
28. Looks like around the last day in January.
But what my thought is, what if we did it at the second meeting in January?
What day is that?
January 11th.
It can't be more than 40 days from town meeting.
Oh, that's right. So we may have to have a special.
So it's got to be between 40 and 30 days prior to town meeting.
You can have a special meeting on January 25th.
Yeah, as long as it's.
You could have
Okay.
a special meeting on January 25th to hit it just right.
Okay.
But you've got to have a meeting and vote on that, and I've got to have time to get it ready to put on the warrant.
That's going to be kind of close. Okay.
That's why that's why I had the question about the timing of the whole thing.
Okay. I'll be in touch with you, Wayne.
Any other questions from anyone?
Yes, I have a few questions.
Okay.
They were questions that were never answered originally. I don't have the whole document before me right now, but I'm interested in whether or not we'll be doubling our operation costs when we have a new water tower, whether or not we'll be doubling our maintenance costs if we have a new water tower. I'm interested in who's liable on the bond ultimately, the citizens of Newport, personally liable, and whether or not booster pumps, which was another method of getting water to that area, might, without having a water tower, whether that cost has been looked into. I'm interested in the cost of the water meters, which showed on there to be about $1 million, when at $500 per water meter, which is what we've been installing, and assuming we have about 750 meters left to install, that cost would be only $375,000. So, and I'm interested in what happened to the negative percentage loan that you guys originally talked about. And I can't remember what your original estimate and cost was for the water tower, but as I recall, it wasn't $5 million back when. I could be wrong about that, but I'd be interested in what your original estimate was. So those are just 6 or 7 questions that I have that you might want to answer now, or you might want to answer, I'll expect you to answer by the time of the next meeting.
Do you want me to answer 3 or 4 of them, Paul, quickly?
If you have the information, then you can answer
Sure.
it, yes.
Yep, so the previous bond amount was for $3 million. That included a different type of storage tank on a different site that was a little bit higher in elevation, and it included the work on the existing Palin Hill Reservoir cover and liner. That did not include the water meters. The state does not do a negative interest loan any longer. They will do a 0 to 2 or 3%, and they're doing some subsidy, but that was ceased, and they haven't done that in the last 2 or 3 years. The reason for the water meters, why the significant cost there, is there's many very different sizes. If you're in commercial buildings, that's a very different type and size of water meter that's a lot more complex and costly than what you're putting in a residential home. We also have budgets in there. For example, if you have a mobile home, you actually have to dig and install a fiberglass meter pit below grade to put the meter in. So that's significantly more costly. We have those carried in the estimate. And then as part of this, overall funding with USDA, it's got to go out to bid. And as part of that, the state requires that the water meters be installed by certified plumbers. So I think that answers probably 3 or 4 of your questions, at least initially.
Thank you, and I'll expect the rest of them later.
Okay. Anything else? Then, thank you, Wayne. And thank you, Michael. We will plan on having this. I'm thinking we might want to have another informational meeting to be able to answer questions, maybe at the second meeting in January, which I think is the 11th. What do you think about that, Laura and Wayne and everybody?
If Wayne can accommodate it in his schedule, we could make it happen on our end.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Wayne. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, Paul, just a couple suggestions here. As Jim will, you're required to have at least one within 10 days of the vote. And then working that backwards, you can obviously have more than the one, Paul. You can have 2 or 3. That's strictly up to the city. You got to be a little careful about having them too far from the bond vote. We'll kind of figure out, when the information goes out, but I always feel like maybe in February it's a little more effective because it's kind of in people's mind with the vote coming up in March. And if you did something in early February, you can kind of see what questions you get and, be prepared to, answer those or respond to some of those at the second meeting, which is right before the bond vote.
Okay. So we'll basically have this on the agenda then. We'll have to have the special meeting to warn the bond vote, but as far as a public information meeting, we could have it in February. I agree with that. Okay. Other questions from council members? Well, thank you, and we'll keep working on it and moving forward.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yep. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Wayne.
Okay. Just changing my sharing screen here. Moving on, the next item is the operational FY21-22 budget review, and we have Public Works and Other and Capital. Let me get that up on the screen. Okay. Okay, Laura, I'll turn it over to either you or Tom.
Well, thank you. The page that we're looking at tonight is Public Works. Is that the sheet that you've got pulled up?
Yes, I got it right from the website.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is bring everybody's minds back to our FY 21-22 budget review. The third presentation, the first one we presented, I believe it was admin and police. Then we went into fire and recreation, and tonight we're here to present Public Works and Other. I'm going to open up a different screen. I'm very pleased to have Tom Bernier present his budget to you. And I'm just going to pull up his sheet. And with that, here's Tom.
Evening, everybody. I guess I'll get right into it a little bit. Just looking at starting out with my admin budget, I just highlighted a few spots that might catch your eye as far as difference in costs, or actually there's a couple big ones that are in the negative. Of course, a lot of that with Social Security and HRA expense. Becky kind of plugs those in there for me. But as far as the admin goes, it's down a bit. Moving on to street maintenance, and I'll kind of elaborate on all of the items: street, winter, garage and facilities. The regular pay really is just a reflection of where I feel we make spend a lot of our time. So if you see a jump in it like you do on the regular pay for street maintenance, that's just an addition to that line item. And again, these numbers which is included with the Public Works 3% raise. I know in past times people had asked me why I had such a jump or a decrease. It's basically where I think I might be spending our time. Moving down in the street maintenance, I do have an increase in materials. We've been doing a lot more patching of our own in the last couple of years, so I increased that a little bit right there. Truck equipment and parts has become an issue, so I've increased that a little bit in that line item too. Parts become very expensive. Some of the new emissions on our diesel trucks, we've had a couple of the exhaust systems go, and they're about $8,000 a piece whenever one dies on us. So that line item is up a little bit under street maintenance. I can move down to winter maintenance. I've decreased our salt budget, which is a rare, you never see that. And maybe I shouldn't have deleted it, but actually our salt is down $9.77 a ton. So I did decrease that, and I'm hoping they hold that price for next year. Of course, this budget is for the following year. I did increase our truck equipment parts under winter maintenance, like I did in the street maintenance, because our parts are becoming extremely expensive. The next one down, I actually decreased for truck and equipment repairs. Part of why I did that, the repairs is typically when we send a piece of equipment out. We have a new mechanic, Andrew Patno, that started with us a couple of years ago, and Andrew is very capable and tends to repair most anything we have, unless it's a major transmission or a motor job or something along that lines. Moving down to garage and facilities. Here's another one on the regular pay. I just increased that line item a bit just to absorb some of that 3% raise. And the propane number is up. Fuel costs have increased a little bit. Let's see, utilities is up a bit. I increased that a little bit. Overall, that line item under garage and facilities, the total amount went up 15%, but as you'll see, some of the others are in the negative or a lesser amount than what they were last year. Looking down through the list here, let me see. Stormwater maintenance, another big increase. You'll see a 28% increase. Outside contracting, that's our roadside mowing. I increased that a couple $1,000. Traffic maintenance, another one I highlighted there. I just increased the salary, the regular pay. And that line item is up a little bit from 140 to 147. But overall, my budget is less than 2%, and that's including 3% raise to the union members. I think overall it's a pretty good budget that I'm giving to you guys tonight. Have any questions out there?
Yeah, questions from council members? Well, I think it's a real good budget, Tom. You seem to come in every year with a budget that's right around, well, generally right around 2% or a little bit less, and you still manage to maintain the roads, maintain the infrastructure, and so I want to commend you on a budget that I think is very reasonable, and I think it's a really good budget.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're out getting really more into talking about budgets will be the capital. That's where a big portion of my expenses come in.
Right. Any questions for Tom? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tom does always do a good job with his budget. The budget we presented to you this year, as you know, is very tight with very small increments based on what we thought was best practice given what a strange year this has been. So with that, we're going to move into our other, and our other contains a lot of different aspects that are not necessarily specific to a department. One of the first ones that we have, you can see on the screen, is the city landscaper. Just to refresh your memory, this is an opportunity that we had, I believe it was back in early 2018, if I'm not mistaken, when we were approached by Robert Goslin as he was going through his own transition to consider hiring him as city landscaper. When we looked at our budget and realized what we were paying him as a vendor and what we were getting for that money, it actually proved to be more cost effective to pull him in-house. We were successful in doing that. The City Council approved combining a variety of different line items and robbing a little bit from the recreation budget and a little bit from the public works budget to create a part-time position. Robert works for us 39 weeks out of the year. He is covered through medical and does receive the other city benefits. And we're really proud of that. Throughout the 2 years that he's been on this job, he's been able to realize the botanical garden theme that we're working towards, which is out of the waterfront and downtown master plan. So what we've been able to do in our creativity is have a position that works part-time. He does not work during the winter months. When there's snow, he starts working in March. He provides his own inventory. He grows it in the greenhouse. The greenhouse was something that came with him that he sort of bequeathed to the city as long as we supported it with the infrastructure. And I'll direct your eye to the bottom line where it says total city landscaper in FY 1920. You'll note that's $102,000, which is significantly more than we had expected, but that is because those are one-time expenses that support the greenhouse. That greenhouse is where Robert basically spins his magic, and that is where he creates all the colors and all the themes and all of the plantings that you see in the city. So as I bring your eye forward to our proposed budget, you'll see it's significantly less than 102. What you will notice is that there are new line items in there that are more realistic to support the greenhouse, such as the propane expense. We also have in our current budget voter approved to get Robert a vehicle, and through the creativity of our Public Works Department, we'll be able to bequeath, again using that word, a vehicle from the Public Works Department to support him in this coming season. The other thing that you'll notice is that the cost of materials, plants, soil, and fertilizer has not gone up. And that is because each year that goes by, he's able to increase his inventory. The fixed expenses, such as life insurance and disability, health insurance, retirement, Social Security, we can't do anything about that. The salaries that are showing there, $34,097, are Robert's salary for the 39 weeks. I believe it's about 1,600 hours in a year, if I'm not mistaken. And he also has a seasonal salary that you'll see near the bottom of that category. Robert really needs either one very qualified seasonal person or two good workers to help him pull off the beauty that he had this particular summer. Robert's raising the bar, though hot weather helped bring a really beautiful city. I'll remind the council that we received more compliments from strangers and locals alike that it was a pleasure. We're not used to getting compliments, frankly. So to have people come forward and express their gratitude towards this investment was lovely, and it was validating to think that maybe we're in the right direction. As you know, we've been moving ourselves out of an empty Main Street block, and we have hope that that block will be filled in at some point in the next couple of years. However, as Ted Brady stated at the chamber meeting held in early 2018, no one is going to come and rescue us. We have to create our own destiny. We've done that by investing in our infrastructure and by investing in our beautification efforts for the city. We already have great restaurants, we have a beautiful waterfront. We've been working closely with a downtown organization to emphasize our outdoor recreation economy, and it seems like things are starting to gel. We've been working towards a transformation for a while, and this past year was very satisfying. And I credit the work of the city beautification and the city landscaper in helping to actualize our plan in moving us out of our funk, frankly, that we've been in. It's been very exciting and very gratifying to watch that unfold. So does anybody have any questions on the city landscaper category? Robert is here if there's any specific questions you'd like to ask him.
Questions from any council member?
Melissa, I was just wondering, the truck that carries the water tank around, is that what vehicle we're talking about?
That vehicle is currently Public Works' vehicle, and they loan it to him. That vehicle needs a little bit of work done to it to put it in a better operational state, and that's where the funds are going to go that were approved in our current budget. So the Public Works Department will use those funds to rehabilitate that vehicle because it works very well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Other questions? I just want to reiterate what Laura had said regarding the emails and compliments. I know I received numerous compliments from people who visited Newport various weekends over the summer, and they were just complimenting on how nice everything looked and the level of basically, a couple people stopped me and said they were so much happier, this was residents, so much happier seeing flowers in the islands than the ugly green cement and tar that was there. And so I just want to say that Robert, I think, is doing a top-notch job. Now, Laura, he grew the flowers that we had in the fall at the greenhouse, correct?
That is correct.
And so that's just some comments that I had from hearing from various residents and non-residents.
Did Robert also grow the pumpkins?
Yeah.
For the rec departments, for the big pumpkin carving? It was great down in Parmelo Park. Looked really nice. So, great, thanks.
This whole, all of this leads towards the city's efforts to build Newport City as a destination point. And it's very gratifying to see it come to reality.
Any other questions regarding the city landscaper?
Hearing
all right, and Laura, I guess I'll have you move on to the other items.
All right. The conservation and development are basically expenses that, again, we don't control. The bike path, railroad right-of-way, those amounts are set through an agreement. VLCT membership, that's the dues to be a member of the league. Tree maintenance was absorbed into Robert's overall budget, as was the tree warden expense. The appropriation for MVDA allows us to be a member of NVDA. The miscellaneous flower beds, again, that was absorbed into the city landscaper budget. The Main Street lights have been moved to street lights and banners below. So you'll see it's 2,000 plus 3,000 equals 5,000. And the volunteer band, I believe that's the amount you've been paying to the volunteer band for many decades. So that has not gone up. Any questions on that section? Health and welfare, that's our stipend that we pay our health officer, who's also our fire chief. Moving into recycling, the reason that amount has actually, the bottom line of that has gone down is because we're required to have 2 household hazardous waste events this year as opposed to 4, which we were required to have last year. We still have the same amount of staff. We still have the same hours. Hearing no questions on that one, the next item category that's called personnel expense, recall that we have distributed those into the departments that expend those. So now you have a much more accurate picture of how much each department truly costs. Moving into other expenses, again, this is a category of expenses that we don't necessarily control. The Orleans County tax is imposed upon us by the county courthouse. The tax sale redemptions, we usually budget nothing in there because we are, it's a guess. And you see that we do incur expenses with our tax sales, but we also get those dollars back. So you'll see that equal amount in revenue. I do want to talk about the downtown designation commitment. Now this is the same amount that we've put in for 3 years in a row. This would be the 4th year. I believe that the chair, Richard Tatro, and our Mike Welch, who is the consultant and senior project manager with NCIC, who's in charge of our RCDI grant, are on the phone. And I believe that Rich was hoping to make a few words on that. Rich, are you there?
He is on the call.
Richard Tatro and Mike Welch. Is Mike on the call as well? I'm guessing somebody might be calling back in. I just heard a telephone.
There's Rich. For some reason, I can't hear you, Rich.
Hi, Mike Welch is on.
Hi, Mike. I can hear you, Mike. I can see Rich, but I can't hear him for some strange reason.
Rich, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
I went out and back in, and that seems correct.
Okay. So.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for hearing us this evening. I just wanted to give a brief overview of our organization one more time, and also a year in review real quick for you. Our current strategic plan is still focused on outdoor recreational economy. The board is comprised of 6 active volunteer members, and I'm very proud and thankful for all of them. It's a healthy mix, actually, of different people, and we work hard together. And if anything, we've proven this year that we're very resilient. And we have a lot of support from NVDA and Karen Garrity, as well as Laura mentioned, NCIC with Mike Welch. Now, the year in review, if I had a theme, its challenges yield opportunity. And through that, I'll go through a few bullets here. We have some board member changes. Conrad Bellavance, who presented to you last year, stepped down. He had a lot of work demands due to COVID, so his volunteer time had to come to an end. I think we reported last year that Jennifer Daigle had joined the board from Community National Bank, and more recently, Eleanor Ledger from Eden Specialty Cider has been added to the team. So we continue to sustain good participation. When it comes to COVID-19, we have a nimble and ready board. We were able to adapt, just as you have. If anything, I found that virtual meetings has maybe increased our participation. It does cut down on travel time for folks. And also, it's enabled us to maybe have a few more meetings than we had in the past, which has been important as I go through a couple of the other things that we've been working on that needed additional volunteer time from board members. As far as staff level changes, Jim Davis did depart earlier in the calendar year, and we looked at that. That was a staff member for the board. It was a part-time position, and we took a different approach on this one, and actually we filled it through a service contract rather than a position with the organization. And we're very fortunate to have Amy Crouch come on board, and she's been doing great work. The results thus far have been more than positive, and she's helping us focus on the strategic plan, executing it, and committee forming. Now, when it comes to committee formation, we've had a good, healthy run at marketing in recent years, and we've got the economic development and design committees underway and meeting routinely now as well, which is great to see. We also recognize that we need to get up and running an organizational committee that's more focused than it has been in the past. And that's a type of committee that focuses on membership, finances to include identifying other sources of sustainable funding for operational expenses. And recently we focused on the bylaws, which this organizational committee will be focused on in the future. Regarding those bylaws, we adopted new ones last week, and it will expand on our momentum that we've been gaining because we're going to be able, we've increased the board member size to up to 7 members from to 9 from 7. So we're going to really capitalize on that opportunity. And it's going to be helpful in not only building more momentum, but adding capacity and redundancy for when there's changes in the future. Also, we've had increased engagement with the state of Vermont. We did have a meeting with Deputy Secretary of ACCD, Ted Brady, and the Downtown Program Manager, Gary Holloway, earlier in the year. And throughout the remainder of this calendar year, we've been meeting routinely and have solid lines of communication with Gary. In fact, he gave us feedback on our bylaws and other work that we have underway, and he joins us at our meetings on occasion. We do have healthy monthly meetings, and they're going quite well. So that's an overview of our resilience in the year and also a framework for our continued results moving into the future. And I do want to highlight for you the results, some of the sample results. One of them I wish we could report more on, but due to COVID, it certainly impacted it. We were going to do an NEK-TV study in support of the action by the city and understand how that's running. We did get early indications when we started the outreach process that things were going well. Pick and Shovel, for example, was seeing an increase over weekends from ATV travelers. But as far as a robust study, we realized that the data set wasn't going to really be appropriate due to the COVID environment. We're going to wait for a time when travel patterns, visitation, people are out and about more routinely than they are now to get a better indication and more realistic data to do an assessment and provide that for a piece of information to the city and others. And then Downtown Dollars is an example of success and results, and we partnered with Vermont North Country Chamber utilizing state COVID grant funds this year, and we doubled the purchase power under that program for a one-time special event that we called Local Business Bucks, with a total of $20,000 used to encourage consumer spending for the holidays within the designated downtown and a little bit beyond. And then most importantly, the one that always resonates with all of us, that it is in the 10-year history that the organization has brought significant benefits to the downtown. In the tax credits alone, the downtown designation has brought over $700,000 of tax credits to leverage over $8.5 million in investments in downtown business. So I'd like to say, in closing, many thanks to the city for continued support. The budget item before the council is a key component to our organization's current funding stream for operational expenses. And that ends my report, Mr. Mayor.
Are there questions from council members? Okay. Laura, did you have anything?
What I wanted to add about that, Mr. Mayor, the screen says meeting paused. Are you able to put the budget back up?
Yes. Let me close something down. Give me 1 second.
What I wanted to make sure the council understands is, although there's $60,000 showing as an expense, 30 of that is from our operational budget, but the other 30 is from the Walmart fund. And back in 2017, Karen Garrity presented to the board, and that was the year that the board agreed that in addition to the $30,000 operational fund, the board would match it by the $30,000 of the Walmart fund slated to mitigate the impact of Walmart on the downtown economy. These combined funds are used for operational expenses and are also used towards funding the position that Rich mentioned that Amy Crouch now holds. The board asked the city that this funding model be used over the next 5 years so that this stable financial base will help in the recruitment of a capable and qualified person to the position, and that's exactly what's been happening. The amount is the same, the $60,000, so I very much appreciate Rich coming forward and talking about all the accomplishments the board has had in this 1 year alone, and I expect that trend to continue, particularly with such a viable group of people who sit on that board. So it's really quite satisfying. It's very important that at a time like this, in the city's transformation, that we do have a collegial working relationship with the downtown board. So many of the grants that we have successfully applied for, with the help of Mike Welch, of course, have had letters of support from the downtown designation, which of course is their purpose and have been very helpful to the city. So it is very beneficial for both entities. We're lucky that this group of people have come forward, because it is, after all, the city's designation. These folks are volunteers working very hard at every meeting and in between meetings. So sitting in my seat, I'm very pleased and pleased to have them here, and pleased to see the $60,000 in there as continued commitment.
Okay. Questions from any council member? Okay, Laura, I'll let you move on.
Okay, so the next thing that's important for the council to realize as you scroll down that screen is that we have our Newport ambulance. And the Newport ambulance, that's what Charlie Pronto is on the call for. Charlie has been working with, well, I don't know how long you've been in this role. I know it's been a really long time, but Charlie and the city and all the other municipalities that Newport ambulance provides services for meets on an annual basis. Usually it's in this room. And Charlie provides an update on their expenses as well as their coverage. And that's been a very good process for all of us to engage in. We included their budget in your packets, and I believe it's on our website. So there are no surprises. 3% increase was what we had anticipated based on the number of calls and per capita. The amount that they proposed has been incorporated into the budget, and with that, I'll turn it over to Charlie to speak more in detail.
Yeah. Hi. I like your shoulder, Paul. That's kind of nice.
You like what?
I like what's on your shoulder. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's the way to have a meeting right there. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Basically, I'm just going to give you a rundown fairly quick, and then if you guys have questions, you can have questions. But we came in at around 3%, which is where we were trying to do. But in all honesty, that's just a crapshoot. As our last meeting, which was the very first part of December, Newport Ambulance Service, the division that serves Newport, Coventry, Derby, and Newport Center, was $88,390 in the hole this year as the budget went. we're probably going to end the budget with about a negative of about 100,000. So, and that's just one of our divisions. We also have the substation, which is out in Morgan, which is up and running now. So, and we have the service at NEMS, which does Lamoille County. So the saving grace was the federal government. We got some CARES money and PPP money, which we have made all the applications. I would assume the city might have had some of that also, but we weren't sure whether it was going to be a grant or whether it was going to be a loan that we had to pay back, and we've been notified that it has been a grant, so that's a plus. Overall, Newport Ambulance Service, Inc., which includes all three divisions, is going to be down somewhere around $200,000 from our anticipated budget last year. The reason we can come in with only a 3% increase is because we received around $400,000 from the CARES and State Act. Somewhere in that vicinity. It's 300 and some odd thousand. And without it, we'd have been in big trouble. But with it, we are able to cover the loss, that $200,000 loss, and an anticipated loss of about a similar amount for next year if we only raise our budget 3%. Part of the problem is when the hospitals shut down services, so there were no surgeries going on, they just shut a lot of stuff down. So we lost a ton of transport money. And our actual call volume is down about, I think, somewhere around 900 to 1,000 calls overall, which is a lot of money. So, and we anticipate that at least for probably the first 5 or 6 months of 2020, and that may be, of 2021, and that may be wishful thinking, that we're going to probably be in the same boat. So if you looked at our two budgets, you're going to see that our anticipated call volume, we left it the same. Because our call volume is done based on an average and what we anticipate from year to year. And with COVID, it's just not accurate. It's just a crapshoot. So we said, well, what we're going to do, we've got money left over. We're going to go in assuming the same type of call volume as we normally do. So our call volume is the exact same figure for this year as it was last year, even though we were down over $100,000. And so that's kind of where we came in with the 3%. Our people, as you know, are frontline workers. And we applauded them considerably. We did give them a pretty good raise in the next budget as a response to that. They also did get some hazard pay. And the hazard pay was probably about $45,000, so everybody got $2,000 or $3,000 bonus for being on the front line. But that $40,000 cost us because we have to pay workers' comp, Social Security, FICA, unemployment. So it cost us about 20%. So that $40,000 cost us about $8,000. But we gave all the money to the employees. So I mean, we're pretty happy. We feel pretty secure that we'll come in at 3%. I mean, that's the budget for this year. I think we've carried over enough income that we have an anticipated loss for this year. And we feel that the money that we have in the till will cover that anticipated loss, we're hoping. And if it doesn't, then next year we're going to come back to you for more money. But I'm hoping that we don't have to. And if for some event things pick up and things turn around and we don't have that loss, then we will put that towards the 2022 budget, and your actual budget will go down, which is pretty hard to imagine. But I mean, we just don't know what to do. So we've taken that money and put it into a fund, and hoping the losses aren't as bad as they were this year. But I will tell you, without the PPP and the CARES part was from the state, the PPE was federal, and without that, we would come to you guys with a figure that would have knocked your socks off, and us too. I mean, we only have a $50,000 line of credit, so you know, when you lose as a service totally over around $200,000, that $50,000 would have got us in some trouble. So. But we're pretty confident. I mean, we stayed on top of it year long. We did bring in some extra income because our people actually signed up to do COVID testing for the state. So we generated some income as a result of that. Had we not, our losses would have been quite a bit more. That was probably about $90,000 that we had in revenue, but most of that went back out in payroll. But some of it stayed for operating expenses and stuff. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. I mean, I don't know if that explains it real well for you folks, but we're hoping the 3% is going to be fine. And like I said, we're going to anticipate a loss in our operating budget, but we should be able to eat it up with what we've kept in the till, and we'll just pray that things don't get worse next year than they were this year, because this year was not a lot of fun for us.
I can imagine.
So.
Question I have is the area that you're covering, it's working out all right? I see you finally were able to build get a garage for an ambulance, and I believe it's Morgan. So I'm assuming that's helped you out quite a bit out in that area.
Yeah, I mean, this was that's kind of a strange situation for us, because this was our building year. This was our first test year to see how many calls we actually were going to do, and those are way off. So the substation actually, even with that, only lost like $9,000 of that $200,000 that we all lost. So that might have helped everybody all the way around. But we just don't know on the numbers. We don't know. This year's numbers are just wrong. And seeing that's our first full year operating out of the substation, we still don't really know where we're going to be. But I will tell you, the surrounding towns are extremely happy with us, because they're getting service that they much better than what they ever had before. Even when they had an ambulance in town, they still had people on call, or we're getting there quicker than the people that were on call or called in. So they're pretty happy. From Newport, what we call Newport Ambulance Service is you guys, Coventry, Derby, and Newport Center, our original grouping. I mean, we've benefited from mutual aid from ourselves. So we basically are providing our own mutual aid. We've not called on mutual aid for Newport Ambulance Service, period, this year. So, and what that means is that there is never a call that we haven't answered. And if you remember in the past, sometimes we were out of the area because we were covering people. We were covering for Missisquoi, we were covering for Derby Line, especially because they were having issues. we were the backup for Linden Rescue, which was out in Brighton, sometimes making it tough for us. So now, because we've managed to add a full-time crew on, and we can shift them. So if we get called out and both of our crews are called out in Newport, then we still have a backup that's in Morgan that can get there pretty quick. Generally, we do an on-call group, so that would be a fourth squad that comes in immediately and in the meantime, but we still have a squad that's ready to reply immediately. There was one day that we had 5 ambulances on the road, and we had all the squads for it and called out, and they were, so we just haven't dropped a call. So I think the substation for your guys' benefits are that we have a built-in mutual aid that we control, which is great.
Well, that sounds good. Are there any questions for Charlie from council members?
Nope.
Nope. I guess. Well, thank you, Charlie.
Okay.
And I know it's been a tough year with COVID, and it's hard to figure out what's going to happen actually this upcoming year too. Yeah.
Well, and that's why we came in where we came in, and we just said, you know what, we're going to keep it at 3%. We're going to use that money. I'm hoping that if things get bad and it actually gets worse for some reason, and our numbers are really down, that probably the feds and the state will come back in and supplement us again. They've been really good. So I will say that. I was just extremely happy with what they did for us, but I think they realize that, you know, EMS is pretty important service to have, especially when there's a pandemic going on. So
that's correct. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, and Laura can get hold of me anytime she wants. She knows that. So.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
So just getting, Mr. Mayor, if you would go right up to that bottom line of that particular category, down 1.33%. Now we can move on to debt service, and this is where you'll start to get a little bit creative with how we're starting to incorporate year 1 of our 5-year capital plan, which we're excited about. So just to take you down to this one, no surprises in the fire chief's vehicle, principal and interest. No surprises in the Long Bridge. I will ask Chief Bingham to come. As you know, we replace a police cruiser once a year, and we wait until the results of town meeting, and we place the order, and it can take 6 or 7 or 8 months to get a cruiser. And in fact, the one that was approved at town meeting this year, even though it was ordered timely, has only just come in. I think it just finally got here last week. So what you're going to see as you scroll down for the police cruiser pages, line items, there's no surprises there because each year you pay one off and you incur debt for another one. What is new this year, and I'm going to ask Chief Bingham to come over and explain, is where you see police taser lease and police locker room. We've had some of our own experiences and learning opportunities as a result of the pandemic. I'm just going to move to the side. Bear with me.
Hi, everyone. So Laura had said, so new on here this year was the police taser lease, and a couple reasons for that. So we currently have 7 tasers that are active in line that we use. Out of those 7, 6 of those are out of warranty. So the warranty period on these go from you buy them brand new, the warranty period lasts for the first 3 years, and each of these tasers have a shelf life of 5 years total. So after 5 years, you're replacing them regardless. But the warranty on them is only good for 3, so between year 3 and 5, if something happens, you're on the hook for buying a brand new taser and everything that comes with it. So at the beginning of the year, I started looking around because we have 6 of these that are going to need to be replaced. And I said, what can we come up with? And TASER actually came out with a lease program for these. It's a 5-year program. And what it does is, instead of obviously fronting the money all in 1 year, you spread it out over certain years. So it would be about $3,000 a year for this for the next 5 years. And what that would do is replace the 6 tasers that we have to replace. With that, it comes with training cartridges. We each have to shoot 2 training cartridges every year per training. That's Vermont rules, that's the Academy rules, and TASER requirements as well. It comes with a battery, it comes with a holster, and in that 5-year period, regardless of the 3-year warranty is out the window at that point, you can replace them. You can send it back on year 4, day 360 if something happens, and they're going to send you a brand new TASER. So you don't have to worry about any of that anymore. And to me, this is, you know, the best option moving forward because we do have to replace 6 of these, and it kind of spreads it out over the next 5 years. Does anybody have any questions on the TASER stuff? Okay, hearing nothing, I'll move on to the locker room. So the locker room was originally approved last year as our 5-year capital plan, putting into our budget. Obviously, that was pre-COVID. We had no idea what was going to happen in the spring, and I think we all got a good understanding of how the rest of the year played out for us. So with all that, we realized that a locker room is kind of a priority for us, and the safety of our employees is a priority for us. We've gained space downstairs that we have, that's usable space that we can use. We're not creating any other space. It's there. It'd be adequate. There's privacy. We certainly don't have that now. None of our officers, besides myself, have a take-home cruiser, so we can't expect the officers to come to work dressed. A lot of them bring their stuff here, and they get dressed here. We just don't have adequate space for them to get dressed, and obviously the privacy issue. And also going back to the COVID part of things, you know, right now we're doing the social distancing, we're wearing masks, we're wiping down workstations before and at the end of our shifts, we're wiping down cruisers. We can't expect our officers to bring this stuff home, and not to mention all the other hazards that we come across on a daily and sometimes weekly basis of bodily fluids or bed bugs or those kinds of things, just to throw it out there. I mean, we'll have a washer and dryer set up so we can clean our clothes. We don't have to worry about bringing this stuff home to our families when we leave. So by doing it this way, this allows us, instead of waiting for the 5 years, this allows this to happen immediate. We can take out a 4-year note, and that's what that number is. Where you see the $29,000 over a 4-year period, we would incur that cost for the next 4 years. And obviously with your approval and the voters' approval, that we can make this happen sooner than later. Any questions on any of that? Okay, Gordon, do you want me to keep going down to the other stuff in the Capitol?
I think we'll...
You want me to wait?
Yeah, we'll just do that first.
Okay.
So I'll call you back here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So one of the creative aspects and tools that we utilized was financing the locker room instead of developing a sinking fund, because we feel that that is a tool that's of some urgency given what they've been through for this particular year. It did propel it to the forefront. If you notice our 5-year capital plan, you'll see that the original intention was to finance that over a period of time. We've asked, by financing it for 4 years, and that's a rate we called the bank, and they gave us the numbers, and we incorporated in there with a hope that this might be something that council would see the wisdom in doing for the safety of our employees. Moving forward, the next one in this department is the recreation vehicle. You're going to want to leave it right there. Recreation Harbor Master Boat. You may recall that we've had some significant challenges with the boat that we currently have, and Jess Booth is on the call. I can see her ready to give some more intelligence about that. And just before you speak, if someone is, could someone please mute their phone? It appears we've got some reverberations again.
All right. Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor? Okay. So you guys will notice the recreation vehicle that we currently are paying on, that's our pickup truck, that will be paid off this year. We decided to put in $20,000 into the budget this year for a new Harbor Master boat, and the reason for that is a couple things. Number one, the boat that we currently have it's a workhorse, but it's getting past its useful lifespan. When we had the dock drift off up above the Canadian border, we found ourselves sort of helpless because we couldn't get that boat started on the weekend, and it was during the evening, and it was a windy afternoon, so that caused some challenges, which I'm sure Laura kind of filled you in on. So the fact that we are having issues with starting it, and that's not unique to that one incident, that's a pretty frequent thing, but this really brought to our attention the importance of making sure that we have a piece of equipment that will work, especially when we are hosting a marina and we have mooring fields and things like that. It's kind of a vital piece of equipment to make sure the operations run smoothly there. The second part is there's a couple services in our bay and on this side of the lake that are underserved. So I think Eric is on the call too, but there's been a few occasions even since he's been Harbor Master where when somebody gets stranded out on the water, whether it's because they ran out of gas or they hit a sandbar and they're sort of stranded out there, a variety of different reasons, they naturally call the Harbor Master for assistance on that. And at this point, going out to rescue someone with the type of equipment that we have, our boat doesn't have enough guts to do that. So we sort of pass that along to either the police department or the fire department, and they may send it off to the state police and so on. So there's not really a rescue service per se on the lake here. And I know that when I very first started back in 2012, we had some rates for boat rescues, and I think it was like $80 an hour, $85 an hour. So I see that that's a need on the waterfront here, and especially if we are recreation-oriented and we're supposed to be sort of orienting ourselves towards the lake, offering a service like that seems to make sense and could also be a source of revenue for us if we had the proper equipment to be able to do that. Same thing with our mooring fields and dropping out, like the buoys that are out there, the no-wake markers and all of those types of things. Instead of contracting that work out, we could potentially do that if we had the right, proper, and safe equipment. So in the budget here, you'll see $20,000. I did ask Eric to sort of get some quotes on different equipment that would fulfill those needs if we wanted to offer those services. And the price tag for a brand new boat that's got that kind of equipment was, I think, around the $85,000 marker. So we decided we'd hold up. We don't want to go for the whole brand spanking, enchilada there. We're going to put in $20,000, and that will give us the opportunity to be prepared to take out a note if we find something that's used that would meet those needs. So that's why that is sort of incorporated in that budget this year. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Now, Jess, the current boat, is there any value at all? So you do get a new used boat, we'd get something for the old boat?
Eric can probably answer that a little bit closer. I did ask him that question, and he said we'd probably be lucky to get $3,000 or $5,000 for it. But at the same time, he sees value in hanging on to that boat to do the things that are a little bit messier, I guess. It is a workhorse. So we could really go either way on that. It depends on if what we found for a used vessel would fulfill all those needs and we wouldn't have to worry about having that secondary workhorse, then we probably could get rid of that and do something with it.
Well, my reason for asking is I can't picture us having two boats in the rec department and then the police boat. That's just my thing. I mean, I think two in your department is a little more than I think we need.
Yeah, hopefully when we come upon a used boat, it will be what we need it to be, and we won't need to have two.
Okay. Other questions from council members?
No.
Okay.
So with that, The fire truck's principal interest at the bottom is there. It has been there for years, and it will be there for a little bit longer. So your total category increase on your debt service with this proposal is 2.86%. So now we're going to move into our capital expenditures, and this is where the remaining of the budgets all come into play for us to be able to carry out our big projects for next year. So these are categorized by department. So we'll start again with Public Works. We'll talk about the first several lines, and I'll bring Tom right over here.
All right. Just start out that all my numbers always go with our 5-year capital plan. We update it every year. It may change depending on circumstances of roads and that have issues. All the numbers pretty much coincide with the capital plan. Equipment, I'm keeping it right at the 155. Level of rotating our big trucks out at 10 years. We usually budget half or close to half 1 year and then purchase it the next. So it's a 5-year capital plan, what our plan is for equipment that are ready to be replaced. Street resurfacing, if you notice, I have dropped that down. We did have some funds from last year that weren't spent, so I reduced it this year. Of COVID and everything else going on, our construction has taken a little bit of a back seat to some of our projects. I also reduced the reconstruction a little bit by $15,000. I did take a portion of those funds and put them to this project. I increased that from $50,000 to $122,000, knowing that project's going to be a fairly sizable one, and I feel we're going to need those funds there. Overall, I'm still down $40,000 throughout all those capital items. So I think that we also had a couple of them last year, the crushed tire pile. Those are one-time line items that are no longer in my capital fund. So that's all I have. Thank you again.
I'm hearing some feedback, so I'm hoping that you can hear us properly on that. Again, if someone is hanging around could mute their line, that would be really helpful. I don't want anybody to miss anything. It's riveting. The next thing you're going to find is the municipal building maintenance. We've been putting $10,000 aside each year. This building is old. Needs a lot of help. We've got 2 issues that are coming on board. We've got some brick maintenance work that's required, and we're soon going to have to be paying attention to our slate roof. So I would encourage that line item to stay intact. Then I'm going to turn it over.
Well, this is Melissa, and the Mayor, there is a lot of feedback. It's really hard to understand what's being said. It keeps breaking up and echoing. I don't know if what it is, if folks are still not muted. I don't know. Anyway.
No, I'm finding the same thing, so I just want to be sure folks can hear us. But it sounds better right now. So, anyway, what I was saying was about the $10,000 for the municipal building, in case you might have missed that due to the background. We have some brickwork on the front of the building that needs to be attended to, and we're soon going to need to address our slate roof. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our fire chief to talk about the the firehouse repair and maintenance, and the fire vehicle and equipment.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
Mr. Mayor, could we go back to the grandstand red barn demolition?
Okay.
From what I'm reading, in the 1920 budget, we had $35,000, and we spent $26,240 to, I guess, take down the red barn. And now we got $25,000 back in there. Are we looking to take down the grandstand? Because that's what it's, the grandstand red barn demolition.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, can you put that on the screen? Can you show that line item? Yeah. So, regarding the red barn demolition, that did happen, I believe it was the year before last, or just in early 2018. And we waited a long time for that to be able to come down. It did come down. Now we're turning our attention to the grandstand, and we understand that the grandstand has some historical value to some people in the community. But we also understand that the grandstand is now a hazard. It's gotten neglected and dilapidated, and it's at the point where our passive insurance is recommending that it come down. Earlier in this, in the year that we're in, one of our council members asked, what's happening with the grandstand because it looks like the tiles are going to blow off the roof, and that question was very appropriate to be asked. The problem that we are in right now is that we can't do anything about it other than take it down. It is a safety hazard. We had thought maybe some of the pieces of the grandstand could be saved and used out of an honor, if you will, to the historical building that some people feel it is, in some sort of new structure. But right now, the sad reality is the grandstand is a dangerous hazard. And it's our recommendation, along with our insurance carriers, that it come down. We put $25,000 in there based on what the cost was to take down the red barn, and we kept it in the same line item so that we could have some framework in which to put a number in there that would be some sense of reality. It will require hiring a contractor to do part of the work, and our public works will do part of the work, and we'll have quite an expense, I'm sure, at the landfill. So that is what the $25,000 is pertaining to, and I apologize for not addressing that sooner in the presentation, and I'm glad you brought it out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have you, Laura, with the grandstand, have we thought about down the road looking into a replica and what the cost would be? Because I have to admit, to many in the community, it's going to be sad to come down. I understand the hazard. I understand the insurance. But I also would hope that in the future we could have a replica built like they've done in other communities. And so I would hope that we would be looking into a possible, the cost of a replacement, whether we start a fundraiser or we look for grants or things like that.
Yep, that's all on the table, and I would remember the in 2015 and 2016 there was a rather large plan made for the entirety of Gardner Park, and that was a phased plan. And right now we're focused on the playground, as you know, and that fundraising is going very well, and we're hoping to be able to start implementation of the playground next year. There's no reason that this couldn't be part of a phased plan for that section of the park. So I'm going to leave it to the community to keep our fingers to the fire and hold our feet to the fire to make sure that happens, because I agree it's very important. We want to put something there that's usable and beautiful and ornamental and can be appreciated for many generations to come.
Okay.
All right. So now we will get to the fire department section. And I'll have Chief Harlan come to the floor.
Let me just grab my glasses. Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I only have a couple of line items there. One of them you'll see is the station floor. As you know, we had planned to do that this fall, but with the uptick in COVID activity in the area and the end of October, we had to defer it till the spring because the company was coming in from Pennsylvania, and when the governor locked the borders down, it wasn't practical for them to be able to quarantine and then come here and do the job and then quarantine when they went back home again. So that $50,000 is leftover money from the previous year and $25,000 that was allocated for this year. And our goal is to be able to do it in the spring, hopefully April, May-ish. That's where we are with that. And then below that, you'll see $20,000 for equipment and truck. We bumped our purchase of a new engine out a year, which left a payment in place that would have been incurred this year. And what I'm asking is to put $20,000 towards a new side-by-side. With the opening up of the side-by-side trail networks throughout the community and here in the city, we took our current one out onto the trail networks, and we do cover carpentry, and we do have the new trail networks going in over at Scott's farm. And because it's about a 15-year-old vehicle, and it was originally a two-person unit, and we've been using it as a four-person unit plus a patient, it is quite substantially inadequate for the job that we need to do now. With the opening of the trail network over at Scotts Cove, there's a couple of trails that are totally inaccessible by vehicles other than an off-road side-by-side. And in the past 4 or 5 years, we've had, I think, 3 or 4 cardiac events where we've had to go with our side-by-side and extricate patients on the walking paths. And we just have come to the point that it's a 15-year-old unit, and it's time to upgrade. And our plan is to be able to order it this winter and take delivery in July or August. And I think those are the only 2 items that I have.
Any council members have questions for the fire chief?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Going to bring in Chief Bingham again.
Hi again. Okay, so the bulletproof vest replacement cycle. So the longevity of our vest is a 5-year span. So after 5 years, we need to replace these. These vests cost about $1,000 a piece. And as you can see in FY 1920, probably about 75% of our officers are on the same cycle where we all get cycled out the same year. However, we do, occasionally we'll hire a new officer between here and before they need to get changed out. So we need to set money aside for that, and that's why that's in here, because they do need to be replaced every 5 years. Moving down to the PD tech equipment fleet replacement. So obviously we have a lot of technology within the police department themselves. This includes our portable radios. But as far as like our computers, our workstations, we have a lot of storage, security, cameras, those kinds of things. We want to make sure that we're putting money aside. That way, if we do have an event where we got to replace some of this stuff, we have some funds available to do so. And then the last thing on here is our dispatch equipment. With the $286,000 that we spent to get the 24/7 dispatch up and running, we want to make sure that we're getting funds set aside to replace any of that. We all know equipment breaks down over a period of time. We are taking on more agencies. We just added 2 more that will be dispatching for starting January 1. And that's probably the main question they ask me when they end up coming on board is, are you guys setting money aside to make sure that you can replace equipment if it fails? And so I just want to make sure that we're doing that, and we are doing it, so that's the reason that that's there. Any questions on any of that? Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
And I think we can turn it back over to Jeff. He's going to talk about the line item for recreation vehicle equipment, aquatic weed control, dock, and so on.
So recreation vehicle equipment, there's $12,500 in there, and that is in accordance with the capital plan. We're preparing to purchase a new tractor next year, I believe, and that's a $30,000 piece of equipment. We've spent quite a bit in maintenance trying to keep that piece of equipment limping along. So that is there. The aquatic weed control, there's $26,000 in there. As you'll recall from my earlier budget presentation, we had $10,000, I believe, a little over $10,000 in the operating budget for the installation and removal of aquatic bottom barriers. So this is the actual purchase of the barriers themselves and the rebar that needs to go on top of them. This material has a 10-year lifespan, so we won't expect to see this again for another 10 years once it gets purchased. And we are, of course, moving to that because we had challenges this year with the lack of the hydro raking project. Lucky for us, we were missing quite a few slip holders, but nonetheless, it was still a mess down there. So this is us moving in that direction. The replacement of the new docks, this is to replace the dinghy dock section that runs parallel to the Gateway Center balcony. So you can see there's $8,500 in there. We did cut that in half. We still have another $8,500 to go. But Eric did resurface that, or Matt resurfaced that last summer. So we can get by another year without those brand new docks. But we are preparing to purchase them in the past. So over the last maybe, years, I think, we're shooting to set aside $70,000 for those set of docks, which is a big ticket item. There is $10,000 in waterfront improvements, and that's again part of the capital plan. Gateway improvements, there's $3,000 in there. Our goal for this upcoming year is to replace the flooring in the kitchens there and in the upstairs bathrooms. And then Gardner Park improvements, $10,000 there, and that's sort of that maintenance fund that we're trying to build up with plans to use that down the road for the next phases of the Gardner Park restoration projects. Lastly, two more things here. So we got $2,500 in there for event and program equipment, and this is to sort of move us in that direction. We talked about repositioning our summer programming to remove the summer day camp and then come up with some new programs for youth, the ones that seem to be more popular attended, the specialty programs, so adding in things like archery, fishing programs and things like that. So the money that's in the budget here will help us gear up to start offering those new types of programs. Lastly, $10,000 in there for the Prouty Beach improvements, and again, that's to contribute to that sort of rolling maintenance fund. Next year, our hope is to add some more larger pull-through sites in that back parking lot. We have a large parking lot back there. It's nice. Some of it is used, but certainly we don't need to have that much asphalt in the park, and we could be benefiting from a few new sites. Campers seem to be growing bigger and bigger, and at this point we don't have pull-through sites to accommodate those really large ones. So that's what we're looking to add next year, plus 2 lean-tos, so that anyone that's along that bike path that's being developed has a place to stay if they decide to make it an overnight event without having to have a tent or a camper or anything like that. They can just roll in on their bikes with their gear and stay overnight at Prouty Beach. I believe that's the end of it. Yep.
I like the idea, Jess. I like the idea of the lean-tos along the bike path because
Yeah.
I know I see them at the state campgrounds where they have lean-tos where people can just come in and stay in the lean-to and not worry about a camper and or a tent. So I think that's a great addition.
Yeah, I have fond memories of some lean-to camping at state parks from when I was a kid. We preferred that over, tenting or having an RV. So yeah, I think it'll be good.
Any questions for Jess from council members? Okay, we'll turn it back to Laura.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody's fortitude. Jess, can you mute your phone? I'm guessing that swinging sound might be you. All right. Whew. Thank you for that. So what I wanted to point out is the total of the capital, 0.21%. And we're pretty pleased with this budget overall. It allows us to continue the work that we've been focused on, and it allows us to utilize the restricted funds the way that we have represented and the way that the council is expecting. So now comes the juicy part, and that is, I would, before you leave that section, Mr. Mayor, if you could go back to the bottom. I just wanted to look at the bottom line. Total expenditures, $5,814,945. With that, I then wanted to draw your attention to the recap page, please. If you could pull that page up.
Did it come up, Laura?
She seems to be frozen.
Okay. Let me... Hold on. Bear with us. I just sent her a note that she needs to reconnect. Oh, I see her. Laura, can you hear me? Yep, you're back. You froze up for some reason. So let me reshare the recap page.
Sorry, everybody.
Give me a second.
That's okay. I can put my heart back in my chest because yeah. So we'd like to.
You should see the recap page, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So what I wanted to point out to folks is all the numbers on the bottom of each individual department's budget sheet gets transferred onto this sheet. There's probably 10,000 formulas in each cell, a total of them, to get this spreadsheet to work. So as you look through the budget, and again, this is posted on our website, you'll see that all those numbers are transferred. The net numbers are at the bottom of each page of the individual department, and as you scroll down, If you would start to scroll down, I want to bring you to the difference in this budget compared to last year, the budget that we're currently in. I want to draw your attention to these numbers, taxes to be raised in FY 21-22. The total expense, if you look up, now Mr. Mayor, if you could put your cursor right there, exactly, 5 right there. That's the total amount that you just saw on the bottom of the page that we were just looking at. It's been transferred over here. We are expecting $1,618,000 in total income, which brings the amount to be raised by taxes of $4,196,540. Last year, the council voted to assign $100,000 to their budget to help offset the amount of taxes. Mr. Mayor, if you could highlight the $100,000 right there. You see that this year we have not put any assigned fund balance to help offset our bottom line. So, Mr. Mayor, if you could now highlight the section where it says taxes to be raised, the grand list estimate, right there. The budget that we're presenting to you tonight and we're asking for council approval is a difference of just less than 3 cents. You'll note that the grand list is set at $321 million. We do expect that may climb to possibly $323,000, but we'll know more at the time you set the actual rate in August of 2021. We're aiming very conservatively. We'd rather people be pleased and have their tax rate go down than surprise them and have the tax rate go up. If you notice, the difference in the amount of dollars between this year and last year is $116,724. If we took away that $100,000 offset, the difference would be only $16,724. We're really proud of this. We tried to do all the difficult thinking for the council and present you with a responsible, conservative budget that you would take some comfort in presenting to the taxpayers. And that's why you see no offset, and that's why you're seeing a 3-cent difference. We kept our budget what's called level funded last year. This year, the reason the budget is low is because we're able to utilize very wisely the funds that the council restricted back in October. We believe that by managing this responsibly going forward, we'll have the same good outcome at the end of this tax year, which will be June 30th, 2022. So with that, it concludes our presentation. What we thought is that we'd give you the next couple of weeks to come up with questions or to analyze the budget, and we would put this on the January 4th regularly scheduled City Council meeting for a vote. So what I would ask of the council, I think last year we noticed that there was some very minor errors in the worksheet that amounted to maybe a $400 difference. If City Council members notice that, please let us know. As I mentioned, there's thousands of formulas behind each cell to be able to have each worksheet carry over to the recap page. And every year we try to improve it. Sometimes it gets to the point where you're involved so deeply that it's hard to see the forest through the trees. So with that, I welcome any questions for any of the department heads or anything that we've presented to you thus far.
Are there any questions from council members at this time? Okay.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say I'm exhausted by the amount of work that went into creating this budget. Thank you.
It's definitely a team effort. The department heads are very responsible, and they generally present, first blush, a very responsible budget. We come together as a team, we analyze it, we always pull in the city clerk and treasurer with his wisdom, and we usually cut because we know that the bottom line that we're presenting to the taxpayers is very important. So we do it with an immense amount of process and respect, so I appreciate that.
One thing that I really like seeing in the budget is the waning off of using offsets to reduce the tax rate. I know that's something that gives a false sense when you offset your expenses, and so I'm glad to see that you don't have an assigned fund balance in there, because this is showing the true budget, the true income, expenses, and so on. And I'm pleased that we're slowly getting away from using that.
It definitely has pros and cons, and where we are right now with where we want to take the city, it's a con. And by getting rid of it, we can show what the small incremental steps are. I don't anticipate we'll be able to keep a level funded budget next year. So having that reality, that sense of reality is actually a better tool for us putting the budget together for 22-23.
And of course, another good thing is we're using the true grand list. We've been doing that the last few years. We haven't tried to put in estimated grand lists. You're using actual numbers, which I think is key also.
Yeah, those are two tools that we have at our disposal to give the taxpayer some comfort that the increases are small incremental steps.
Okay, anything from council members? So we will have this on the January 4th agenda. It'll be for final questions and comments, and we will have it set to vote on at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we will move on. Okay. The next item we need is an executive session. Executive session under 1 VSA Section 313A2, real estate. And we will need a motion. Is anyone?
Yeah, I'll move that we enter executive session to discuss negotiations or securing real estate purchase or lease options according to 1 VSA 313A2.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Made by Ms. Pedersen, seconded by Mr. Wilson. Discussion? Then all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. I'm going to put everybody on hold. You're going to hear music while the executive session is happening. Okay, we are back from executive session, and we need a motion.
Dan Ross here. I'd like to make a motion to approve the posting and publication of the notice of sale of a municipal real estate for the city's conveyance to Gray Raboyne LLC of a plus or minus 0.3 parcel of land at the corner of Union Street, Indian Point Street, and Sloan Street for $20,000, and to authorize city manager to execute the quitclaim deed conveying the aforesaid parcel of land to Gray Raboyne LLC if no petition is submitted objecting to said conveyance.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Then all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. And with that, we'll move on to new business. The only new, well, mine's new old business, but I wanted to commend Jess Booth, the rec director, Laura Smith, who works with Jess, the recreation volunteers, the city police, the sheriff, the fire department, and other volunteers who helped with the Pomelo family distribution of meals and gifts 2 Saturdays ago. It went very well. I was glad to see the tradition continue on despite COVID, and I know much appreciation was sent to the Pomelos for continuing their tradition. So I just wanted to give them a shout out, everybody who was involved. And that's all go ahead.
I was just going to say, Paul, that I was really impressed again, just as you were with the rec department and how they organized all of that. And then, it was fun kind of driving around and leaving stuff on doorsteps. So it was good. It was a good evening.
And I also want to commend the East Side for once again putting on they made wonderful meals for people to have at their homes. And so I want to commend Dina and the East Side because there was a lot more effort this year in having to box up all the meals to be delivered compared to the past years of having it up at the Elks. And so a good effort by everybody involved. And it went to some needy families, and I was glad to see it, the community coming together.
This is Laura. I just want to say it was so fun playing Santa Claus for a few families. To be able to drop that stuff off and see their expressions was really heartwarming. So maybe we were the ones who were gifted more than them, even though it was just a really nice event.
Yes. Okay. And then the other new business, Mr. Wilson kind of brought up about the town meeting day. And I just wanted to let everyone know that, yes, Mr. Wilson, it was Act number 62, which was passed in October. Basically, I'm reading it now because I had to look it up because I remembered it. It basically started out with dealing with Australian ballot. They started out discussing the legislature how to have town meetings if you don't have Australian ballot. Well, we already have Australian ballot in Newport, so that had no effect, but it was the other aspect they added. Basically, no person shall be required to collect voter signatures in order to have their name placed on the ballot. So that's part of the Act 162. So signatures as far as becoming a candidate for office is waived for this town meeting due to COVID. I don't think I have any other new business, so I'm going to go down my list. Mr. Ross?
I just have a question. If we don't have to get voter signatures, how do we get on the ballot?
You have to fill out the consent form.
Consent form at the clerk's office?
I believe you can either, I think Jim has them, or you can download it from the Secretary of State's website.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you have any other new business?
I'm sorry, Jim. Excuse me, I had you on mute. Jim has a response. No? Okay, never mind. Missed it. Sorry.
Any other new business, Mr. Ross?
No.
Nope. Mr. Charbonneau?
Quick question. They still have a deadline when they have to sign up to have their name on the ballot, right?
Yes, I don't remember the date by. It's on the Secretary of State's website, and Jim probably has the date also, that you have to have the consent form filled out by.
Okay, that was my only thing.
Okay, any other new business, Mr. Charbonneau?
No.
Ms. Patterson?
No.
Mr. Wilson?
No, we pretty well touched on it. My only concern was, you know, and some people know how to get, as Mr. Ross didn't even know how to get on the ballot. People out there in Newport that might be interested in maybe running for public office, they don't know for sure. And that was my concern, that if people within the city know how to do it, the word ought to get out to the public. That's all I had.
Any other new business?
None.
Okay. Laura, any new business?
No, thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a motion to approve that purchase of that cruiser Travis has already taken possession of. So the cost of that vehicle is $34,294. And to finance that for 3 years at an interest rate of 1.48%, well, it would be $974.51 a month for 3 years. I don't know if you got much choice, he's already taken possession of the car.
Was this?
Anyway, we're trying to stay with a 3-year cycle, and we're financing these things, so we don't have to come up with $35,000 at one time. So.
Okay, so we need a motion.
Yeah. To authorize the purchase of the 2020 cruiser.
Dan Ross, I'll make a motion to authorize the purchase of the police cruiser.
The motion's been made. Is there a second?
Kevin Charbonneau, I'll second.
Made and seconded. Discussion? Then all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Any other new business, Mr. Johnson?
No.
All right, we'll move to old business. I don't have any. Mr. Ross?
I know it's running late, but I want to do a little thing here, and I'll try to make it as quick as I can. All right? What I want to do is I want to talk about the city of Newport just for a minute, because it really deals with the budget. I want you to know that in Newport, 30% of the households make under $20,000. Of that 30%, 21% of those make under $15,000. All right? Newport is #1 in the state for receiving food stamps. All right? Seniors, 18% of Newport area seniors 65 and older, 17% earn less than $10,000 a year. And 37% earn less than $20,000. 30% are on food stamps. So the median Social Security payment is $1,328 a month. They're going to get 1.6%. That's an increase of $21 a month. All right? So if you go through any of the numbers, you know, our population is 17.2% below poverty level. That's pretty bad. When you look at our education, we're 4th of the number of people per population without a high school diploma. We're 41st. And I only give you this information because this is half of our population is paying for our budget. And I'm going to go right back to what I said before. I think a 3% raise for every non-union employee is unacceptable, especially in the times that we have today. And my big concern now is the restructuring, and how does our budget meet that restructuring? Are the recreation and public works budgets reflecting the possible reconstruction? and reallotment of employees. So that's just my little spiel for today. And I'll end it at that.
Well, Mr. Roth, I also have a counter spiel to you. What are we going to do about the education taxes? Last year, we saw a 12.5-cent increase in the education tax rate. And so my question is, how do we, the city can't offset our operational budget to counteract the education fund, and that's the thing that I find.
The governor has already said that the educational taxes will probably go up 9%.
Right, and see, so
above what we're paying now.
Right.
So, but we can still. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at every time everybody gets 3%, and it's not reality in the real world. And we can never say to the union, we're not going to give you 3%, because the union's going to say you always get 3%. I'm not. You can't mix apples and oranges for me when you talk about educational tax and city tax, and you talk about wages.
Well, I don't know. I look at the union contracts that the schools all get, and they all got more than 3%. And so
I don't believe that's
so.
True,
And I don't. And I don't.
And I know.
Well, I don't want to get into an argument now, but I don't agree.
I can go back to my union contracts, and I can show you everything I got every year. And for me, it doesn't matter. And I've told the city manager that I don't care what people make. It doesn't matter to me. I gave up a job in the 90s to come back to Newport, where in 92 I was making more money than I am now. All right? So if I wanted to make money, I'd be living in Boston again, or I'd be in New York, or I'd be someplace else. So the idea of how much somebody makes, it doesn't matter to me. It's how it affects the people that are paying it.
So you penalize the non-union people. Is basically what you.
I don't think I'm penalizing them.
Because we've always, in all the years. Let me finish my thought, please. Okay. In all the years that I've been involved, the non-union people got roughly the same, or pretty much. Actually, they got the same pay raises as the union folks, and that's been a standard for years. And if you want to change it, well, I don't know, but all I know is it comes across to me as you're penalizing, and I can't remember how many non-union folks we have, but to me it's a penalty. And you voted on the council to support the union contracts. I mean, you did not object at the time to the pay raises that were negotiated in the union contract, where you could have raised objections then and we could have gone back to the bargaining table. And so I look at it as you're penalizing maybe, 10, not even 10 people, 5 people? That's just I guess we just have a different philosophy and perception on it.
Yep.
But I just go back to the education.
We have to agree to disagree.
Right, we have to agree to disagree. I just keep saying that we can't keep sustaining the educational tax increases year in, year out. I mean, when you have a 12.5-cent increase for education, that's not sustainable. And I don't see the schools trying to cut costs. They just seem to increase every year. I mean, when you got class sizes of 10 people, that's too small. Class sizes should be back to 20 people, in my opinion. And so, oh well, we had just agreed to disagree on it.
Can I say something, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I've heard this situation about the 3% for non-certified for many, many years. It used to come up every single year. And most of the non-certified won't say anything because they don't feel they have the right to defend themselves. Well, so I wind up defending them myself because I can say something. In my book, we got 30 or 35 employees here, and to try to lower the budget on the backs of 11 people is not right. If you want the non-certified to settle less than 3%, then you want to be negotiating the contracts for less than 3%. Because that is not right. You're treating the non-certified as if they're not as good or as important as the rest of the people in the city. And that's a bunch of bull. That's my take on the whole situation.
Okay. Well, any other old business, Mr. Ross?
No, that's it.
Okay. Mr. Charbonneau, old business?
No.
Miss Pedersen?
No.
Mr. Wilson?
No.
Okay. The next regularly scheduled City Council meeting will be Monday, January 4th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:47 p.m.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
A motion made. Is there a second?
I'll
I'll second.
Made by Mr. Charbonneau, seconded by Ms. Pedersen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.